Well, the first one was so good that they made a sequel. It's time to lecture about World War II. All right, we're going to try to make this as painless as possible, focus on the key points here. I know we've all been having long, rough weeks with everything that's going on, everybody being sick. So I'm going to try to make this as palatable for everyone as possible. So, first of all, World War II is a global catastrophe that changes the landscape of the entire world. I mean, what comes into World War II comes out of World War II completely different. This is going to be a total war across the globe. The use of technological advancements in warfare and massive human costs. So let's talk about the causes and the build-up to World War II. One of the biggest causes was the Treaty of Versailles. And as always, I apologize for my puppy. He's all of 16 weeks. I would show him to you, but, I don't want to rile him up. But anyways, the Treaty of Versailles was one of the massive issues that caused World War II. It placed such harsh conditions on Germany after World War I that it facilitated the rise of Adolf Hitler. And the Nazi ideology was about expansion, anti-Semitism, and militarism. All of these things are not a good recipe when you are trying to maintain a peaceful region in the world. That being said, the Germans were very aggressive. And in 1935 to 1939, the Germans under Adolf Hitler will expressly defy the Treaty of Versailles. And this is what we call the period of appeasement. Something you should very much remember, period of appeasement. The period of appeasement is when the powers of Europe are just going to let Hitler do what he wants without any real repercussions. It's basically, and I give this example all the time. Essentially, let's say your mom and dad said your bedtime was 9 p.m. Or you got to be home by 9 p.m. You guys are old enough. You don't have a bedtime, probably. Hopefully, I don't know. But anyways, you got to be home by 9 p.m. And they're pretty strict about it for a while. And then one day you're like, "Hey, Mom, can I come home at like 9:30?" And they're like, "Oh, okay." And so you come home at 9:30. But you asked that time. The next time, you just come home at 9:30. And your parents are kind of like, "Yeah, okay. Yeah, fine, whatever." And then you push it. And you come home at 10. And your parents don't do anything. You come home at 10:30. Your parents don't do anything. So you now believe that you can just do whatever you want because your parents aren't punishing you. Well, think about the European countries as what, the parents, and Adolf Hitler as the rebellious teenager here. He is going to push the boundaries of the Treaty of Versailles, which were basically his rules. Here's what you have to abide by. And every time he pushes it, they just don't care. And so, or they're like, basically like, well, we don't want to cause a scene. We don't want to cause a ruckus. So let's just let Hitler have what he wants. Yeah, the Treaty of Versailles was not very good. So this is all right. And Hitler will do this by remilitarizing Germany. He will he will take back Alsace and Lorraine, territories that were taken from France. And he keeps pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. In 1938, there's the Anschluss, which Germany annexes Austria. The Austrians kind of welcome the Germans at this time, even though in Austria it won't tell you that. The Germans take Austria, and even then, the Europeans are like, oh, okay, well, what's the difference? It's a German and Austrian. They're kind of the same thing, whatever. Then, in 1938, we have the Munich Agreement. And in the Munich Agreement, Britain and France allow Germany to take an area called the Sudetenland. Look up the Sudetenland. And this was very, very controversial to let him have that territory, because it wasn't necessarily traditional German territory. And so, but the British Prime Minister, his name is Neville Chamberlain, comes back and says that this piece of paper signed by us and Adolf Hitler means that we have peace in our time. And he becomes the butt of jokes forever after that. In March of 1939, the Germans occupy Czechoslovakia. Now Europe is like, uh-oh, we've let him go too far. Then we have, in August of 1939, the Russians and the Germans, who are not friends, decide that they will secretly agree to divide up Poland. This is the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. I see that Willie found Mr. Pig. Oh, Jesus. Okay, it's okay. Hitler thinks he can do whatever he wants, because they haven't tried to stop him. They have not tried to stop him. And why wouldn't he think he could do? Like it's like that analogy I was talking about. He basically, the teenager thinks, yeah, well, mom and dad aren't going to do anything. And mom and dad are probably going there going like, we would really wish that he'd come home, but we don't want to cause a big scene. We don't want to have a fight. Yeah, maybe our rules were a little out of date. No. So, but then Hitler invades Poland in 1939. Now, when Hitler invades Poland in 1939, this is a clear violation. The future Allied powers of France and England are having none of it. And the scary part is that Hitler is able to take Poland in a matter of weeks because he used what is known as a blitzkrieg. And a blitzkrieg basically means lightning war. It means fast-moving war. Now, this is going to be the big difference between World War I and World War II. World War I is going to move pretty slowly. They're going to rely on a lot of horses. They're going to rely on a lot of slow-moving things. And now we're going to have fast-moving light artillery, airplanes, everything else. And Hitler is going to just sort of... Okay, think about it like this. For those of you guys that know anything about football, and if you don't, I'm sorry. But they call it a blitz in football because you bring defenders to try to overwhelm the offense as quickly as you can. And they can't recover. That's exactly what Hitler does. That's where they get the word blitz, is from the blitzkrieg. Once Hitler invades Poland, Britain and France declare war on Germany. And initially, the Germans are going to be very, very successful. This is where we move on to point 2, early war and Axis success. So Germany invades Denmark and Norway in April of 1940, easily defeats them. Then, if you go back to one of our previous lectures, Hitler's going to use the same von Schlieffen plan, and he is going to invade France through Belgium. And the difference is that this time, instead of having to rely on slow-moving troops being pulled by horses and things like that, he is going to be able to use his fast-moving trains and everything else to, trains and tanks and planes and everything else to move quickly and take what is known as the Maginot Line in France. And by June of 1940, France has fallen to the Germans. Hitler goes to Paris and poses in front of the Eiffel Tower. Once the Germans take over France, the French create what is known as the Vichy government, which is a puppet government that essentially is a Nazi government. Now, there will be the Free Forces of France. The Free Forces of France. That's just unfair to people to name them that. The Free Forces of France. But those are going to be the people that are going to resist the Nazis. Now, one of the best things that happens here, when France falls to the Germans get on the radio and tell all the French Navy, hey, come back to France. You need to come back. You are now a part of the German Empire. And England responds to the French Navy going, no, don't. We will take care of you. So that was a brilliant move by the English to stop the French Navy from falling into the hands of Adolf Hitler. Now, for some reason, though, and here's the thing. I'll just tell you up front. The worst thing going for the Germans was that Hitler thought he was a military leader, and he was not. And for some reason, Hitler kind of stops and doesn't immediately push into England. He doesn't try to launch any sort of ground invasion into England. England would have probably not been able to repel him. Instead, Hitler tries to use his air force, the Luftwaffe, to take on and conquer England via the air. Well, the Battle of Britain from July through September of 1940 is the first completely aerial battle in the history of the United States, or the history of the world. It's going to be the British Royal Air Force versus the German Luftwaffe. And in this, you're going to see the use of radar technology, something that will lead to the modern microwave. Hitler will say, basically he will abandon any invasion plans of Britain after the Battle of Britain was successful. The Brits repel the Germans. Now, Germany still controls France, but they do not control Great Britain. Meanwhile, there's Italy. And Italy is struggling. They are struggling, and they try to invade parts of Africa. They are not successful. They try to take Greece. They are not successful. The Germans have to help them in the Balkans and in North Africa. And really, one of the worst things going for the Germans is that they are allies with the Italians, because the Italians are not very successful in fighting. I've said before that people like to make fun of the French and how they fight, when it's really the Italians that are not the best fighters in the world. So then, after these failed expansions, though, we get the tripartite pact, which creates the Axis powers of Germany, Italy, and Japan? What's Japan doing there? Why is Japan a part of this? Well, it doesn't make sense, because if you think about Hitler's predilection for race issues, why is he going to partner with the Japanese? Because of the United States of America, that's why. Because he believes that the Japanese will keep the United States busy. So, we're going to end this video right there, because this is a good stopping point, because the United States is getting ready to enter the war. And, yeah, there we go.